I don't think we can hear you. It's too loud.
Okay,
Hold on.
I'll stop the music here. Hold on. Audio effects. Stop. Okay, sorry about that, everybody.
You smashed it, Peloton.
What were you saying, Lakeisha?
Yeah, well, I was asking about the music. I mean, he went from like, was it Al
Oh,
Green last week, Stevie Wonder, and now I feel like I'm in a techno house room. So have you transitioned to like techno for tech news, or
Ah,
is that just the vibe you're feeling this week?
it's just whatever was. I forgot to take that one off and add something more mellow to the playlist, and
Tyler rides different vibes every day of the week.
yeah,
That's good though.
To be
Yes, it
honest, I
is.
dig it. Can we go back to it,
I
Tyler?
know it's not bad, right?
L, let's do
It's a
this.
good.
L, I'm with you.
That one's
Good morning, El.
got some jam to it.
Is that guys? Can I talk for a second now,
Yeah, go ahead, Frost.
Tyler? Since hydrogen has been an up and coming topic of the room most recently,
Yeah,
there's a friend in the speaker section. Just joined Clubhouse. His name's Tim Harper. He's founded a company called Element 2 in the United Kingdom.
nice.
Hydrogen fueling. It's raised 30 million pounds of funding. If you want to bring him up, you want to talk to him about that.
Would
Might
love
be
to.
interesting about hydrogen.
We would love to explain to him how.
I just have so many questions. Isn't hydrogen element one?
Where is? I don't see him actually.
But isn't like I mean for us it's a super cool name, but I'm just confused.
All right. While you guys were doing the whole dad section, I was trying to get him to be pulled up, and I think he's left now.
Did we scare him away with the Peloton cycling class?
We lost him. Sorry for us.
He thought he stepped into
We're chilling too much with the music.
a cycling class. He's like, wait a minute, I thought I was going to a tech newsroom and I stepped into a cycling class.
Ping him. We'll apologize and we'll give him the golden.
Hey, El, I meant to ask you last week. Is your profile pic? Is that a play on Wednesday from Addams Family?
Yes, it is.
Ah, I thought so. It's very cool.
Thank you.
We
My
got
friend did this.
We got a couple raising their hand to get on stage here. Let's let them. We'll start with ISIS. Let's welcome ISIS. Although I'm assuming this is not the ISIS in the Middle East. This is a different ISIS.
Interesting name.
Yeah.
Good. You assume correct. How are you guys doing?
We're doing okay, ISIS. What's your story? Welcome to Tech News Around the World. This your first time?
This is my first time. I literally only came up to say to keep rocking the music. It was helping me get up.
I know, right? I'm with you. I am with you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'll do it again, but I'm just going to bring it down a little bit in case Frost's friend comes back. We don't want to scare him away with our cycling music.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
Come on.
So, and then we got another person in the audience with their hand up, Jordan Kelly. Ladies and gentlemen, let's give a warm Tech News Around the World applause to Jordan Kelly. Welcome, Jordan. What's your story?
Jordan Kelly from Bristol, potentially working for Dyson. Who knows?
You got it right. And it's my birthday today. Which
happy damn birthday, Jordan.
Happy
birthday, Jordan.
Thanks a lot, guys. Much appreciated.
How did I get that right, eh?
That doesn't mean you don't have to ride the bike up the hill. You still son.
You ready for this birthday workout, Jordan?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And 1 and 2 and 3 and 4.
Let's do this.
You can do it.
Clean glass,
You get
Jordan.
to stuff your face full of cake, and then you hop on that Peloton and you work.
It's quite a climb up.
I definitely need to lose some weight post-pandemic. I put on around 6 to 7 kilos. So, yeah, after this cake, I'm straight into burning calories.
We're going to burn 2 of those kilos off in the next hour and a half here, Jordan. Woo! I was heating up in here. I'm going to have to jump in the ice bath after this one. So
with a bit of Wim Hof, like 40 in, 40 out.
Breathe. So, yes, this is Tech News Around the World. It's not a cycling class. Pardon the confusion. We're just getting excited here on a Monday. Happy Monday, wherever you happen to be. Everyone waking up on the West Coast. We had a fantastic session on when all the Europeans were waking up a few hours ago, 7 hours ago. This will be no exception. In fact, this session is truly special because we're going to go through the news for the next, couple hours. And then Mr. Tim Cook, Apple CEO himself, is going to hop on stage at the Apple campus, turn on the cameras with the live stream. We are going to go over to apple.com and watch the live stream video, but we're going to watch it with the sound off because our friend Michael Simpson Jr. on stage is going to pipe in the audio here. We're going to listen together and comment together in real time while Tim and the Apple executives show us the future of Apple. And it's a lot of fun. We've done it before. In fact, we've done it for Apple, Google, HTC, Facebook, and most recently Facebook and Google and everybody. We did it with Apple back on April 20th, and where they announced the what was it? The new M1 chip with the MacBook Pro 13-inch.
Tyler,
yeah,
hear me?
Yeah, I hear you, Frost.
Okay, Tim's here again.
Okay, great.
He's in the audience.
Tim, could you...
I've invited him, man.
Okay, great. Thank you, Cal.
Yeah, I've got him.
And so last time we did this Apple keynote live stream, it was on their event on April 20th, where they announced the new iMacs with the new M1 processors and the new MacBook Pro 13-inch, and I believe the Apple TV, right, Michael, with the M1 processors. And
yeah,
that was a fun event. And we had,
unfortunately, today. Well, we'll see. We'll see.
Yeah, we'll see what happens today. There's a lot of high expectations, as always, around these high, this flagship event. This one happens to be the big one of the year for Apple. They have maybe 3 or 4 events every year. This is the biggest of those 3 or 4 events each year, unless you're counting the traditional iPhone launch event, which is usually in September. So they're not launching a new iPhone today because that's always at the September event. But this is the event where this is their biggest event by far, where it's called the WWDC, which is the Worldwide Developer Conference, where developers from all over the world, every person who builds iPhone apps and apps on the Mac, come together to hear what Apple's got in mind for the next year. And we're going to look forward to seeing what they have to share today.
I think the big news today is going to end up being the new operating system. I think they're either going to bring a new operating system to the iPad or they're going to bring one to the Apple Watch. And I think if they bring it to the Apple Watch, they're going to be bringing contacts and some other things that aren't available right now on Apple Watch. And if they bring it to the iPad, then I suspect that they're also going to be unlocking full usage of Final Cut Pro X as well as Logic Pro X on the iPad, considering it now houses the same exact chip that the iMacs and the MacBooks are housing, which means that there's really nothing standing in the way of bringing their full desktop suites of applications over to the iPad. So we'll see.
Mm-hmm. Well, there's a whole bunch of speculation as to what we're going to experience here in the next couple hours when they take the stage, and all of the tech blogs are doing what they always do. It's almost like Christmas morning for the Apple geeks around the world. And let's see, just looking at a couple of the blogs here in terms of what they are expecting to be announced. Gosh, there's no shortage of sources to choose from. Who's got a favorite one? Let's see. Who's got the best rumors on where. Let's go to macrumors.com. They seem to have a good track.
That's my favorite.
Yeah, me too. So for the real Apple fan boys and girls in the room, Mac Rumors tends to have a really good record on what's going to happen at these events. And they're talking about HomePods. They're talking about they've got all kinds of stuff they're expecting. Let me get their official blog post of what they expect here, and then we're going to jump into. There's actually, by the way, in the past 48 hours, Apple added additional content to this event for Apple Music. And so Apple Music, which is a different part of Apple, announces a new special event immediately following the WWDC keynote. So there's not only the WWDC keynote that we're here to watch together, but then Apple Music says, whoa, we want to piggyback on all of this hot momentum of this big annual event, and we got something we want to share with the world while they're all watching that keynote. So we're going to keep it rolling right after the WWDC keynote for this brand new, just announced Apple Music special event. We'll talk about, unscripted. Like they literally just threw this on in the last 24, 48 hours. And so in a video posted on Apple Music's website, first spotted on Twitter, Apple is teasing a new special event that will take place exactly 2 hours after the keynote. So the keynote itself is 2 hours long, and then they're going to do the Apple Music special event. And currently it's not listed in the WWDC schedule. This event is related to spatial audio for Apple Music, which Apple has said will launch later this month. Apple announced spatial audio powered by Dolby Atmos will be coming to all Apple Music subscribers in June. In addition to higher quality lossless streaming, the company has been promoting the new features across social media and within the Apple Music app. However, the mention of a special event dedicated fully to it had previously remained undisclosed. Apple's official keynote begins in just a few hours, and the State of the Union takes place 4 hours after that. Is the U.S. having the State of the Union tonight with Joe Biden?
No, sir.
I don't know what they're referring to then. Huh. They mentioned the State of the Union. So what to expect?
Maybe it's the company's like State of the Union outlook at the past year and then the year forward.
Yeah, could be. So what Mac Rumors is expecting out of the WWDC event tonight is, as Michael said, the new Mac OS, which would be, we're currently on Mac OS 11. So they're going to reveal Mac OS 12, which will have a whole new photo of California as your desktop, and it will have a whole new name to go along with it. I think the most recent one is Big Sur. Is that what we're on right now? And
yep.
And the next one is anybody's guess, Golden Gate or some other. For the past few years, I think the last 4 or 5 years, it's all been parts of California, right? We had Catalina, we had what's the Yosemite, and it's all of these iconic spots in California, and they're running out of iconic spots in California, believe it or not. So
yeah, I think it was Sierra, then High Sierra, then
that's right.
Yosemite, then
That's right.
then Big Sur, Catalina, and then Big Sur.
That's right.
Which is what we're on right now. We'll see what they announce today.
And then before the California names, it was.
I wish they would do Watts.
Oh, that would be amazing. Oh, that would
it would be so cool if they did Watts and the Watts towers were like the backdrop. Oh,
that.
My God.
Hey, Michael, this will make you happy. My company followed a code name of City, so Watts was on the list. It was like 25,000 though.
Oh wow!
Welcome
that's
to.
amazing.
Actually, that's too high. 2,500 or something because it's way down there. But
Michael, you can
there
do
are
it.
So many cities in California.
You can do it in your sexual chocolate voice. Welcome to Mac OS Compton.
Welcome to Mac OS Compton.
That would be fantastic with Dr. Dre coming out because he's part of the Apple team now when they bought Beats. Oh my God, that would be amazing. And they have an NWA reunion on stage.
It really would be incredible.
Holy shit, we should work for Apple. So anyway, what Mac Rumors is expecting is, just as we are saying, Mac OS 12. Who knows where it'll be? Obviously, Compton is the best choice, but who knows if they'll actually go with that. Watts would be a great runner-up. And then they'll probably pick Santa Barbara or something silly like that, right? Marina Del Rey.
That's what I was thinking. Yeah.
And then they're also expecting the new, and this is almost certain, by the way, they're going to reveal the new operating system for the iPhone, which is called iOS, and this will be iOS 15 because iOS 14.5 just came out. In fact, iOS 14.6 came out yesterday, but iOS 15 will be the whole new upgrade of the iOS, and that's where they reveal all the real new changes happen when they change the number like that from iOS 14 to 15. When they do the 14.5, 14.6, that's just tiny little incremental changes that aren't really visible. When they do the full upgrade to iOS 15, that's where you see an actual physical difference, new design, new elements, new characteristics, new features and functions. So we get a preview of what all that's going to be about, which is nice. And then, as Michael said, the new Watch OS, which will be Watch OS 8. And then there's a lot of people, Michael and myself included, who are really hoping for a new MacBook Pro namely the 14-inch and 16-inch, which will no doubt include a new upgraded M1 processor. Whether or not it's called the M1X or the M2 is strongly up for debate whenever they do announce it. We do know if they do announce it, it will have the MagSafe charger is going to be back, which is fantastic, by the way. And it will also have a HDMI port, an SD card reader, and 4 the USB-C ports. How do we know that? Well, because one of Apple's suppliers got hacked, and the schematics for that upcoming device got leaked in advance, and it was verified that this is an upcoming Apple product. So we know whenever they do release that product, that's what it's going to be. The question is it tonight? Quite likely, actually. When it will, there's the issue of even if it does get released, announced tonight, when will it might be released down the road? That remains to be seen. And we did touch on the processors because if there is a new laptop announced, it will have a new processor. And of course, they will spend some time talking about that new processor, whether or not it's the M1X or the M2. The M1 has been an absolute game changer for Apple, and they've put it so far in the Apple TVs, the Mac Mini, the new iMac, the new MacBook Air, the new MacBook Pro 13, and everyone who has any of those, and the new iPad Pros that just came out also have the M1 processor. Regardless of which device you have with the M1, nobody has used those devices that wasn't actually astounded by the performance of those devices. And so the idea that they aren't even resting on the M1 and moving right ahead with the M1X or the M2, they don't even need it at this point. People are still coming to terms with how amazing the M1 is. I'm curious to see what the performance difference is going to be on the M1X or the M2, which is
it's just so insane. I do a lot of CAD and CFD, and I'm a Mac guy, and to do that, I usually rent a virtual machine. I rent a 12-core Xeon server with 32 gigs, and now my MacBook Air with 16 gigs is running just as fast as that, and I save myself, $80-$90 a month in virtual computing.
Yep. And then
incredible.
Lastly, people are expecting an iPad OS update to iPad OS 15. And so basically every single device they make, from the watch to the laptops to the iPad to the phone, we're expecting new operating systems for all of them. And that would be amazing if every device across the whole line all got updated tonight. And then there's, as part of these new operating systems, the idea is that they are going to be much more synchronized and compatible with each other and seamless with each other, so that your phone and your watch and your laptop and your phone and will all kind of work together in a much more integrated, seamless sort of way, so that when you're wearing your watch, your laptop opens, or if you have your phone, your laptop knows your phone's nearby and it knows your watch is nearby, and they all can transfer. When you cut and paste, it'll do it seamlessly between all of your devices. And when you download an app on one, it'll download the apps on all of them. And by the way, it's soon expected that the new version of the laptop will be able to run all of the iPhone apps. That's one of the amazing features that some are expecting in the new version of the Mac OS for the laptops. Is it will run all iPhone apps, all like million plus iPhone apps that are in the iPhone App Store will now be able to run. And of course, those app developers who built those apps for the iPhone and for the iPad have now millions of laptop and desktop devices that will take advantage of that as well, which is great. It's a lot
Well,
more.
they currently run. They've been running since the release of the M1 on the Mac, on the
Yes.
iPads, or on the MacBooks. The problem is they're running natively to the iPhones.
Correct.
And so what they're doing is basically trying to make it run native hopefully on the MacBooks now.
And what that would mean is you're using an iPhone app right now called Clubhouse, which would be very nice if it ran on your MacBook, would it not? So, oh yeah. So other changes they're expecting is that iMessage will work much better between all of your devices, your watch, your phone, and your desktop. God knows that would be nice if those worked better together. They're also, apparently, there's a rumor that many are expecting a food tracking like functionality will become part of the new operating systems. New interface updates people are expecting, including Apple is said to be making some minor tweaks to the colors that are used in dark mode and additional settings. A lot of accessibility updates for people that are challenged with regard to hearing and seeing, and God knows that's me as I'm getting old. I fall into the difficulty seeing category these days, and yeah, but that's there's also one of two others, by the way. tvOS, because Apple has their Apple TV, so they're expecting tvOS 15, and something totally brand fucking new called Home OS, which no one has any idea what it is, but it was included in some code hidden in some that somebody dug up, and it's going to be very interesting to see if they do reveal what this Home OS is all about. I happen to have a rumor, a thought myself related to a headline we covered here about 2 weeks ago. And I think Jonathan will remember this because it's in his ballpark professionally. Do you remember the consortium of hardware unification, smart home hardware, Jonathan, with the lights and the all of the home consumer electronics devices kind of unifying around a connectivity protocol? Do you remember the name of it, Jonathan? Earth to Jonathan.
Ground control to Major Jonathan.
Ground control to Major Tom.
Come in, Jonathan. Are you there, Jonathan?
Ground control to Major
Tom. Come in, Jonathan. Just let us know you're all right.
Take your protein pills.
Okay, we hope when he circles back around the dark side of the moon, we'll try and follow it and see if his signal reconnects. But Home OS, there was a headline 2 weeks ago, and Jonathan jumped in to share his professional insights when we covered this headline, that there is a new consortium to align all of the hardware manufacturers, because today you've got Apple's hardware for the home, you've got Google's hardware for the home, and Amazon's hardware for the home, and then IKEA's got their own hardware for the home. And wouldn't it be nice if all those devices worked together inside of your Apple Home app or your Google Home app, so that you didn't have to choose which, franchise you wanted to be part of? They should all work together. Well, they're now doing that. And so what I think...
Are you sure?
Yes, we're sure. We covered the headline.
Yeah, it's 100% positive.
Very un-Apple-like.
It is very. You're exactly right about that, Dr. Francine. And
well, to be fair, Dr. Francine, Apple is a part of this. They're a part of the alliance, but while all the others are working to create products that are going to work with in accordance with the alliance, even though Apple's a part of it, they have yet to announce any of their hardware that they're going to be doing with it. So today could be the day that they're actually making that announcement and talking about it. And one other thing, Tyler, actually, is that I don't know if you noticed or not, but iMessage has been somehow incorporated in everything that they've been advertising about WWDC this year. And I'm starting to wonder, because something that's been a big conversation that Apple has always shot down is opening up iMessage to
Android.
Yeah, to Android. And I don't know if it'll happen, but that would be one fucking mindfuck of a one more thing if they decided to announce today that iMessage was also going to be available on Android.
Son, you dreaming?
Jesus Christ, what a mic drop! Oh, I'm not dreaming. I wanted to stay a closed garden.
So you mean the all the comments that come from your Android friends whenever they like a post doesn't get triple.
You know how annoying it is when you get those green comments and you're just like, oh God.
No, but you know what? There's actually one good point of evidence that they might do that, Michael, and I don't think anyone else is aware of it. iMessage secretly behind the scenes is trying to get businesses to use iMessage. And if they really want businesses to use iMessage, they need it to be open to Android as well.
True.
So I happen to know somebody who's working on that product. And so you can't try and go up to all the big Fortune 500 retailers and be like, yeah, we want you to use this Apple interface. The same way that Facebook is doing this too, by the way. They're trying to get all the businesses to use Facebook Messenger as a default communication platform to kind of keep it alive and entrenched, right? And
yep.
And so Apple is trying to too. And if Apple's going to do that, they got to open it to Android. And I think that might be what gets them to do it. But back to Dr. Francine's point, she's exactly right. Opening the Apple ecosystem to include other hardware is just a no-go historically for Apple. That's just the antithesis of what they are about fundamentally. However, it was announced. I mean, it was a public announcement that they've done this consortium, and it's going to unify all of the Alexa devices, Google Assistant devices, Apple HomeKit devices, or Siri devices, and
And if you
IKEA.
think
And
if you think about it, they've done it several times this year already, because they did it with the whole they did it with the Find My. They opened that up to third party.
that
Then
too.
they did it with joining this HomeKit thing, and so I'm
So
just
check this out.
interesting.
There's two other really interesting points, which is number one, Apple and this whole antitrust thing. That could be one other reason why they feel like they should open up and be a little more inclusive of folks. And then the other is on this, there is a battlefront happening between Alexa, Google Assistant, and Siri. And all three of those big platforms, it's a new platform. It's the future of computing in some capacity, of voice connected devices that are in your bedroom and in your home and in your office and in your car. And you're going to be spending a lot more time talking to your computer than, communicating through your thumbs. Now, Google understands that fundamentally. Apple and Amazon both understand that fundamentally. And they understand it's a race to get their devices into your home, in your office, in your car, and everywhere else. And they know they want to get the price of those devices as cheaply as possible so that they are the ones in your around you, in your environment. So Google's done a great job of partnering with other hardware manufacturers like LG and Samsung and everybody under the sun to include Google Assistant in those TVs and refrigerators and microwaves and blenders and everything. Apple has done a very bad job at that because, to Dr. Francine's precise point, Apple only does it with their own hardware. So you don't see Siri bundled with other hardware. Alexa is starting to become part of other TVs, just as Google is. But Google's really done incredibly well at getting Google Assistant into third-party hardware devices. And so I think Apple's starting to realize, shit, here we go again with Windows versus Apple, where Windows made Windows 95 work on every computer. Apple's operating system only worked on Apple computers, and that's why Windows dominated the desktop battle back in the 90s. And they can't risk that happening again with the voice assistants. So I think it's in everybody's interest that we kind of equalize the playing field, let everyone use whatever hardware they want, and and then you can add in whatever voice you want. And I think Apple would be willing to participate in that kind of way. And by the way, there's one other really interesting evidential point to bring up in this case, which was 48 hours ago, nobody covered this. We didn't even cover it here because it's not that big of a headline, but it's important in this context. All of the browsers, Chrome, Siri, Firefox, and etc., all united to accept each other's extensions. And previously, Safari's extensions were totally incompatible with Chrome's extensions. And you have developers writing little extension apps for Chrome, and you have other developers writing little extension apps for Safari. But it turns out a lot more people are interested in writing extension apps for Chrome because Chrome has a much bigger market share than Safari. So now, again, Apple was incentivized to say, okay, guys, let's come together and not make the developers choose which browser they're going to write their extensions for. Let's become unified. They only have to write their extension once. It works across all browsers. Bada boom, bada bing. Apple actually wins out of that because now people who love Safari won't abandon Safari and go to Chrome just for those extensions. That you could see how the same concept and philosophy would apply to the voice assistant game, where I really love Apple products, but my gosh, Google Home works. The Google Assistant works with my TV and my refrigerator and my smart toilet and all of these other devices, and Apple Siri only works with my the HomePod Mini or whatever. You see what I'm saying? Or the Apple TV. So it'll be interesting to see. And all of these points that we're talking about we will get God's truth on this. And by God, we mean Steve Jobs being channeled through Tim Cook when he takes the stage in a very Dalai Lama-like fashion in about a couple hours. So in the meantime, we're just going to...
Tyler, can I give a little color to this?
Go for it.
I work in this space.
Yeah, go.
Where we're at Apple MFI manufacturer. That's the Apple Made for iPhone program.
Uh-huh.
The challenge is they've created that ecosystem for manufacturers and developers that's actually fractured too. There's two levels of licenses. There's a developer and there's a manufacturer. And essentially, that whole system is predicated on Apple's supplier code of conduct. They just want to make sure that anyone who puts the iOS logo on a product follows the supplier code of conduct. No blood minerals, no child labor, RoHS, all that stuff. So it seems like policies kind of shoehorning their growth here. I'm done.
I'm Chris, and I'm out, y'all. So that's thank you for that, Chris. There is a whole bunch of headlines to get into before the Apple WWDC keynote kicks off, and also the Apple Music. By the way, we didn't even really do the deep dive on the Apple Music event about spatial audio, which is a very new, important addition to Apple's audio suite. It should be combined with their laptops, their phones. It'll be part of the entire Apple ecosystem. Will now introduce what they call spatial audio and lossless audio, which you can think of as HD audio. I'm a little surprised they don't call it HD audio just for the sake of simplicity of helping people understand what that's all about. But lossless audio does have a very technical meaning, and it is, as usual, Apple's going to be the front runner in increasing the quality on that kind of a front because they've got the hardware and the price tags to go with it, and Apple users want it. And we're going to learn all about lossless audio when they kick that off. And spatial audio is also going to be a big part of that. And of course, their big headphones play into that, and all of their upcoming earphones in the future will no doubt need to be compatible with that. By the way, all of their new operating systems, all of their new future hardware will all need to be compatible with it. So it's going to be very interesting to see how they position that as their new Trojan horse, just as they do with their Apple Watches, which Apple Watch has been incredibly genius in we're functioning as a Trojan horse to get non-Apple users into the Apple ecosystem, just as the iPod did that and the iPhone did that. And that's how Apple continues to gain market share, is through the Trojan horse system of their accessories. And now this lossless audio and their new lossless audio earphones will certainly play into that as well. So speaking of Apple, there's a totally different headline that they will no doubt not be talking about at this event, which is being reported by The Telegraph and all of the tech blogs. Apple has now paid to settle a woman's claims that after sending her iPhone to Apple for repair, the technicians uploaded her nude photos to her Facebook account. So I will retweet this from the Tech News Twitter account, which is very conveniently the first letter of Tech News around the world, TNATW. And you will see this tweet of this story from The Telegraph, which I will just glance over for you. Apple pays millions to woman after explicit photos are posted online. Technicians posted the private photos and videos from her iPhone after she sent it to Apple for repair. According to legal documents, Apple has now paid millions of dollars to a student after iPhone repair technicians posted explicit photos and videos from her phone to her Facebook account, legal documents have revealed. So you can see that article and do your own deep dive dig on that. No doubt we can all bet, you can bet everything you have they're not going to mention that story in their event coming up in a few hours. But they are going to talk about privacy and how seriously they take privacy, ironically. And by the way, there is a drinking game. You can go ahead and do a shot of your favorite drink whenever somebody does say privacy during the Apple event. Although be careful.
Are you trying to kill your community, Tyler?
Yeah. It's going to be the keyword of the day, is going to be privacy, because that's also one of Apple's key differentiators, they feel, is how they address privacy versus their competitors. And mark my words, that let's count how many times they mention privacy and how they are. That's their. But by the way, it's a very critical point in tech in 2021 between all of the hardware manufacturers and all of these hacking issues that are going on and everything else. And privacy is of a particular concern in in Nigeria at the moment, with Twitter being banned, and people using Twitter through VPNs are now being sought after to be arrested and prosecuted. So hopefully people using iPhones are safe according to Apple. Let's hope that the privacy claims hold up for people who are risking being apprehended and prosecuted in Nigeria today by using Twitter through a VPN. So there's a new headline that somebody just sent me through the DMs. I believe it was Farai, who joins us from Justin's room. And by the way, we all just came from Justin's room 37 minutes ago, where he and Jeff and others host one of the best rooms in all of Clubhouse, certainly the best political room, and perhaps my very favorite room that I like to hang out when we're not doing tech news, actually. So, and not just me, most of the people on the stage hang out there. And it's because they do for political news what we do for tech news. And they get really smart political minds on stage talking about what's going on all over the goddamn planet each day, just as we talk about what's going on from a tech perspective. And this is one of those issues that dances between both rooms, actually, this Nigeria Twitter issue, because it's all about rights, freedom of speech in a country, in a democratic country that banned Twitter, and why they banned Twitter, and what's going to happen next. So Farai, who often shares incredible insights about what's happening on the continent of Africa in Justin's room, sent me this article that from News Ghana. And News Ghana is reporting that a foremost media rights group in Africa known as the Media Rights Protectors has thrown its full weight behind the decision of the Nigerian government to ban the activities of Twitter in the country. In a statement released to newsmen by the group's director of African Affairs, the Ethiopian from within the Ethiopian capital on Friday night, the group said Twitter has deviated from promoting free speech, deepening democracy, and encouraging balanced and objective journalism by dabbling in Africa's domestic affairs by promoting regime change across the continent. And that's a very strong statement, my friends. And what they are referring to is the fact that Twitter, there's a beef going on in Nigeria. There's the current government, and then you have kind of the forces, that are pushing against them, so to speak, for lack of a better term. Justin might know the legal nomenclature I'm searching for here. But what's happened is one side has been silenced. Their tweets got removed, which happens to be the president's side. And so as a result of one side being silenced, that's essentially meddling in their political affairs.
Are you looking for censored?
Well, yeah, they're censoring one side of this political friction, right? And if you're going to, that's very dangerous politically. If you're going to step in and start censoring one side or the other, and from Twitter's perspective, I'm sure if we asked them, they would say, well, we're only censoring whatever side is promoting violence, because the tweet that they removed, they're going to claim, well, we removed that tweet because it violated our terms of service, because it promoted violence. We don't really care which side it came from. But internally, Nigeria is thinking, no, you silenced our side and not our opponent's side. And both of our sides are promoting violence at the moment, perhaps. And so now that you've meddled in our internal domestic political affairs, that's why you're getting statements like this from the Media Rights Protections Group saying that, again, Twitter has deviated from promoting free speech, deepening democracy, and encouraging balanced and objective journalism by dabbling into Africa's domestic affairs by promoting regime change across the continent, because they silenced, in this case, a tweet from the regime that's in power. And by removing that tweet, you have essentially, you're, according to them, promoting a regime change, because you're silencing the regime and you're not silencing the challenging political force, for lack of a better word. So they get themselves into incredibly hot water politically by dabbling and silencing, and yeah, it's a very complex issue. Justin, or if Farai's on stage, maybe he can help fill in some blanks here.
Yeah. So, Farai, if you're on stage here, jump in.
Oh, I see him in the audience.
Okay, yeah. So I think that specifically with Nigeria, again, this is from what we're just hearing from people on the ground, and I'm kind of parroting that, but I think that it fits into really a larger paradigm of ultimately how governments are going to view Twitter, and it fits back to the United States with not only Twitter but social media as a whole, right? It fits back into the United States with Section 230. It fits back into what India is going over and going through with Twitter as well. And the fundamental question, what I think is really, really important, the specifics matter, right? Like Tyler said, Twitter is upholding their terms of services. And in these instances, it's not only necessarily racism, it is things that could lead to, in Nigeria, for example, people argue the president made a Sorry, I got a call there. The president made a tweet that referenced potential genocide. That's a big problem when there's sectarian violence going on in the country, and they're using this platform to potentially virtue signal or signal to supporters that this type of approach may be condoned because that can stoke violence, and Twitter doesn't want that. In India, it's issues with COVID-19 misinformation, which many people believe could lead to death. So I think, again, I don't really have a strong point of view except to say that it really fits into a larger debate, which I'm sure many people in tech news around the world feel strongly about whether or not these private companies should be allowed to do this. From my perspective, and based on my Western perspective, specifically the United States government perspective, I think that they should be allowed to do this because this is their terms of services. I think that constitutionally, from a government, from a legal standpoint, the way our laws are set up, the way these tech companies are designated currently, the government has no ability to step in. Now, from a critical standpoint, I would just hope that as terms of services are created by these companies, again, folks, it's always going to be an evolving process, right? They will create terms of services and they will update them. However, I hope, and this is hard, I hope that we don't see companies do what Facebook has done, which is ultimately create terms of service. You can argue arbitrarily, and then determine whether or not to enforce these terms of services based on public perception. I hope that these companies will create terms of services and follow through with those terms of services, regardless of public perception, and until they review their terms of services and update them for reasons outside of necessarily public criticism. So that's my kind of view, Tyler. I think the government should stay out of it. I think that Twitter and these companies should be consistent unless they make legitimate updates to their terms of services.
Farai.
Thanks, Tyler. And I do to a degree agree with Justin. I was just talking to one of the producers at Arise News, which is one of the biggest news distributors in broadcasting stations in Nigeria. I happen to contribute on there, once a week at times, and I was asking what his thoughts were. And I'll read to you what he said. He said, it's a mixed reaction. Some say the IPOB. So IPOB is the indigenous people of Biafra. And if you know what the president was talking about was the Biafra Civil War. Okay? So he was talking about that particular group. So saying they tend to tweet vicious tweets and Twitter does nothing about it. But on the flip side, the others say that the tweets left much to be desired as it was unpresidential. Okay, so there's two sides here, but equally, it's not it to put a pin on that. It's not really the only issue here. You have the SARS issue, the campaign that was looking at the anti-SARS campaign, and equally funding from Twitter, which at times these African governments will look at this as Western hegemony, simply extending itself to domestic policies, and there is a colonial history as well. So I think private companies should be equally conscious of that because that history is not very far. You know, it's not a distant history. It's quite contemporary to many states, and it can be used as a political tool to further that narrative. So there should be some sense of adaptability, looking at the local domestic value systems thereof, so that there's a balance. So I think if you act without internal cultural understanding and merely just acting on the public perception,
rather than having a discussion with government itself, at times could be problematic. So I think you can see from both sides of the argument, I think.
Thank you for that, Faraz. And your voice here is a welcome, very beneficial addition to everybody here in Clubhouse. And Justin,
Tyler, can I ask a question? Both
yeah,
of you?
go,
Is this okay?
Mabwana, please, my friend, go.
Yeah, so I've been watching this from afar. I'm not in Nigeria, but I'm very fond of Nigerians. I was laughing today. There was someone who tweeted, "I'm outsourcing all my tweets to my American remote team." That was pretty funny. So the Nigerians are really hilarious. I love them. I'm going to continue backing them. I want to bring up the question of investability, right? So I think, Tyler, you mentioned in the morning session, at least for me, my morning session, about this might damage Nigeria's prospects as being an investment hub. I know this is tech room, but
What do
tech
you think of that
investments, I
point?
mean, they
Yeah.
have the paystack exit from Stripe. And I'm curious, Farai, if you think that this is going to damage the investment inflows, foreign investment inflow into the tech startup scene, just because of like, oh, great, now we're seeing more government regulation of tech in general, right? Particularly adding the cryptocurrency, the vocabulary situations, the ride sharing, all that. Is this just another string of bans against tech in general?
I think it's a good question. I think it speaks to perception. Of course, one thing we know about investments, capital is a coward, right? When it comes to fragility. But Nigeria has one particular huge advantage. It's the biggest economy in Africa. You're not going to be investing in Africa without including Nigeria. They have a sizable population. It's a good market. It's a good market space. Very healthy ecosystem when it comes to tech investment itself. I don't think the suspension of Twitter will speak to long-term decline of tech investment. I mean, Facebook hasn't been banned. Other social media platforms have not been banned. In fact, if anything, it may encourage a different alternative to Twitter, which may enhance domestic investment. And also, maybe a final point to make is that Nigeria equally has a domestic base of investors itself. It's I don't see that. I think perceptively, yes, but I do not see that in the long term being something that may be a deterrence.
And then just from the private sector standpoint, foreign direct investment in companies, having been my first job out of school was working for the largest U.S. agricultural investor in the continent of Africa. They have operations in countries like Nigeria. Ultimately, from my perspective, from my experience, obviously this is not good because it points to not only potential stability issues with people on the ground, different factions, sectarian violence, maybe, and a whole host of other issues that could negatively impact commerce, not only economic development, but potential infrastructure development. However, that being said, and to put a really fine point on that, what companies are concerned about, maybe not necessarily in the startup environment, however, more so in the infrastructure and hard development of certain sectors, like I'm thinking agriculture, for example, energy, things that are very, very vital to developing a robust startup community, because you need these things to be able to create stuff and just employ people. What is the concern here from large multinational corporations, from large financial institutions like the World Bank, is ultimately government beginning to nationalize certain sectors, certain products, certain properties. And this is potentially tipping your hand towards a concern for that, because you have seemingly a unilateral decision being made by a leader that many in the West would believe is overstepping what is within good taste. However, that being said, it's really hard to draw any blanket conclusions from an action like this because, for example, the company that I worked for, which was Fortune 400 at the time in the US, basically we would do risk assessments on the ground in these countries, but also those risk assessments would be tempered by the relationship that we had with the nation, with the leader specifically, and also what we believed as the influence that the United States had through foreign aid, through soft power, through direct engagement at the State Department level. And that's really a way of saying that even if a leader of, let's say, I don't want to name any countries, even if a leader in the African continent in a nation that was going and nationalizing other sectors, other companies' products, that wouldn't necessarily stop us from investing or slow our production down, because each multinational corporation, within reason, believes that they have different levers that they can pull to prevent that from happening to them. So that is to say, I don't know if this would muddy direct investment in startups or any other different company in a different sector, but I think it does throw up a warning sign.
Okay, I want to change gears for a second and go into the hydrogen topic, because this has been in a lot of headlines lately, and we happen to be, Faraz, our friend here on stage, invited in a friend of his named Tim, who, as I understand it, Tim, you work in the hydrogen space, and we want to take advantage of your deep domain expertise on the issue, because it seems we've been, in these headlines that we've been reading, Toyota just announced, they're going big into hydrogen cars. And then today we saw a headline
Hello,
about.
sorry,
Tim may
he
have gone
left a
again.
while ago.
No, no, I'm still here. I've got another call at 4 here, so
Okay.
Okay.
I'll do what I
All
can
right.
for the next
Yeah.
7 minutes.
And I just wondered, we saw a headlines about a hydrogen airplane, and it really seems like we're at a tipping point with the adoption of hydrogen. Is that, what does it look like from your perspective?
Well, I'll tell you what. It looks a lot better than it did when I was running around San Francisco 20 years ago, and people were talking about hydrogen-powered Mac laptops at the time. And it's looking a lot more realistic. I think we're probably into hydrogen 3 or 4.0 now, and it's one of these things where hype has come and gone, and nothing's ever been realized, but. What we found over the last couple of years, since I got back into looking at it seriously, is that it's probably the only time in technology where I've been involved in a business where instead of everything moving off to the right on the spreadsheet and the market sort of still always being a few years in the future, every announcement we see at the moment seems to indicate that it's going to be bigger and it's coming faster than everybody thought. So it's a fascinating space to be in.
Indeed, seems that way.
I'm hyper bullish on hydrogen. I'm so happy this is happening, 25 years. In college, I was like, this is the ultimate fuel, everybody. Like we just got to figure out how to transport it safely.
What's been the hurdle or friction historically?
It's the safe transport. It's super light, but it's super volatile. In air, it'll just explode. The Hindenburg blew up, tiny spark, and that whole thing just blew.
You're wrong on that. It was the covering on the Hindenburg that burnt, not the hydrogen.
Yeah, well,
if you burn
fuel,
hydrogen, right? It just kind of goes poof straight up.
It's
it
was a skin that was the fuel that
was. That's right.
But Tim,
the big issue with hydrogen is just you're right. It's transporting it, because it's very hard to compress. So even on a 44-ton truck, you can probably only manage to get about a ton of hydrogen on there, and the rest is the high pressure cylinders you need to contain the stuff at sort of 400, 500 bar.
Yeah, Tim, what has been the main friction historically in getting hydrogen to where it is now at this tipping point, and what will be the potential frictions or barriers looking forward?
Well, I think a lot of it has just been that there hasn't been any reason to do it. I mean, oil, gas has been cheap, shale gas, things like that. And now what we're getting is this sort of perfect storm of, the move to net zero. We're getting ESG investing and a lot of sort of cash going into that. We're getting these global decarbonization strategies. We're seeing China shifting everything from EVs into fuel cells now. So suddenly you're getting all this momentum building, and then hundreds of billions of euros being announced by Brussels, seemingly every week, going into R&D. So what happens is you get to a certain point where you have this perfect storm, and it kind of becomes unstoppable. Unlike 20 years ago and 10 years ago, where it started up and then just fizzled out. But now there's enough people doing it. Daimler, lot of the major truck manufacturers are putting sort of hydrogen fuel cell trucks together, and they'll be coming onto the market in the next couple of years. And of course, my company's building out the refueling infrastructure, because if you don't do that, otherwise it's like the early days of EVs, where you can have an EV, but you can't go very far because you won't be able to you won't get any energy for it.
Could you give a prediction?
And Tyler,
And then I would love to hear a prediction that you have for kind of looking forward with hydrogen, maybe something that isn't obvious to those of us that don't have the domain expertise that you have, and then maybe even a hope or a dream or a wish for your own personal hopes when you look forward with regard to hydrogen.
Yeah, well, I think what we'll see, a couple of things, is hydrogen is going to be more sort of B2B play than a B2C play. So for vehicles, it makes sense for the heavier vehicles, 3-4 tons and upwards, going long distances. Below that, I think batteries and EVs will be absolutely fine. But where we're going to see a huge amount of pressure to produce green hydrogen is going to be in areas like the steel industry that would allow you to almost totally decarbonize it.
and what about airplanes?
I think the jury's still out on that one.
Is it?
My personal feeling is that some of the work that's being done with synthetic fuels, so non-fossil, how do you pronounce it, non-renewable fuels, is probably going to provide a bit of stiff competition there.
Is it crazy to think that the Hindenburg still is a phantom to the progress of hydrogen, like on the social conscious level or something?
Yeah, we spend a lot of time on safety related things, but to be honest, hydrogen is probably a lot safer than fuels like gasoline, where it just sits in a big pool burning. But I mean, there is that. It's a question that does come up almost in every interview. What about the Hindenburg?
But similar to how it seems nuclear is now hampered by Fukushima and Chernobyl. Right. And of course, there's been tremendous progress made in, with regard to safety developments, and it's no longer, those things are no longer really a concern in the same way. And I imagine the similar progress has been made with regard to safety of hydrogen. And yet these world shaking events seem to linger like these phantoms. Is that maybe that's the case with hydrogen as well?
It's a little bit different in the UK because we used to have a hydrogen gas network. All the original gas network was based on what we used to call town gas, which is made from coal, and that was a mixture of about 40% hydrogen and a load of carbon monoxide and various other things. So I guess there's less resistance here in that people are used to having things like gas in their homes on tap.
Mm-hmm.
Tim, am I correct in thinking around hydrogen? I looked at it way back when I was at Vantage Point. That the US has to take it on, right? If it's going to work, it doesn't matter. UK is small. It's not really. It's got to take off with consumers. We got to make accessible, like you're doing your charging network, I guess, with the US consumer. That's critical, or maybe even China, but definitely the US.
I think a lot of this is going to be. I think a lot of this is getting driven by China now, and the Chinese government has seen the same opportunity as they had with EVs to produce a lot of the critical components. And in this case, because every fuel cell vehicle requires a battery. So China is ramping up to be very good and very strong at producing the core components that you'll need for the hydrogen economy.
And what is your biggest concern or worry looking forward? Is there something that concerns you about something that can hinder it going forward?
Yeah, I think a lot of it just comes down to the cost of energy to produce hydrogen, especially if you're using electrolyzers. So you can produce it using private wires from captive wind, and basically you're using the curtailed energy. So the wind carries on blowing at night, and the turbines carry on producing power even though nobody needs it. So I think that's where you bring the cost down. But I think the biggest fear is just going to be supply and demand. That as people start jumping onto hydrogen, they find that the supply is lagging the demand somewhat.
Gotcha. Well,
call me old fashioned, but I like to see a return to airships.
Right, listen, guys, I've got to jump off
Thank you,
onto another
Tim.
call now. But good to speak to you, and we'll see you
Thank
soon.
you for joining us, and thank you, Faraz, for bringing in Tim there. And that's a new thing that we'll start to do more of bringing in geeks with deep domain expertise. And in fact, my buddy Jason Calacanis might stop by in the next hour or two to talk about Calm.com, who is in the headlines. But I will save that headline for Jason because he's one of the angel investors in Calm.com. But there's other really interesting headlines about other very interesting startups, and one that our friend Cal here on stage just shared, and I just retweeted from the Tech News Twitter account, which is very simply TNATW, short for Tech News Around the World. And the headline coming from CNBC is that Palantir is related to Palantir, the very data intensive company. There's now a campaign launching to try to force Palantir out of Britain's NHS, National Health Service. The No Palantir in Our NHS campaign comes after Palantir partnered with the NHS on COVID-19 data store. Palantir sells software that is designed to help public and private organizations analyze huge quantities of data and pull out meaningful patterns and connections. It was founded in 2003 by tech entrepreneurs, including billionaire Peter Thiel, a Facebook board member who reportedly donated $1.25 million to Donald Trump's presidential campaign, and in fact was selected by Donald Trump to join his kind of tech advisory committee, and in fact kind of chair his tech advisory committee, and he brought in his friend Elon Musk and Tim Cook and others who all eventually bailed on that project. And then Peter Thiel himself kind of bailed on Donald Trump in the following election. But nonetheless, the headline is that there's now a campaign to try and force Palantir out of Britain's NHS. And it's an interesting headline because, as the article said, Palantir does provide private and public organizations, the ability to analyze huge quantities of data and pull out meaningful patterns and connections. That's what Palantir does. And when you have COVID data, governments are not equipped at all to be able to process all of that data. And Palantir specializes in this to be able to make decisions out of very confusing, huge sets of data. And Palantir was essentially providing a service to the NHS. The problem is that the NHS didn't notify people that they were handing over a lot of this data to a private company, namely Palantir. And that got the NHS in a lot of trouble about 2 months ago when that headline broke. You remember that, Cal?
It's related to the Accenture issue,
right? But the issue is that, I mean, Palantir is just like, hey, we're here to help. We know how to analyze data. You got some data, we'll analyze it and we'll tell you how to make sense of it. The problem is governments are relying on Palantir a lot because what they do is incredibly valuable. But these governments are doing a very bad job of getting permission from the users to share that data with Palantir. And then journalists find out about it and they blow the whistle, and it makes Palantir look very bad for doing something. They didn't do anything wrong. They're just telling the government, we're happy to help. If you got some data you want to process, we can do that for you. And it makes the NHS look bad. It makes Palantir look bad. And it's what the type of stories that journalists love to cover because it looks like, big corruption scandals within the government, that they're leaking data to, private companies and et cetera, when it is what it is. And now that there's a big campaign to try and force Palantir out of Britain's NHS.
Yeah, so Nick's just joined us. Nick Moneypenny, okay. Miss Moneypenny. Did you have a perspective?
Hi.
I know you follow
Welcome
these
back.
things.
Hi. Thank you. Gosh, this is an amazing program. I just have to say, guys, it's bloody brilliant. Bloody brilliant, as the Brits say. NHS, on the television in front of me at the moment, live in the UK, time is 16:06. We've got Matt Hancock, as you probably know, is our very close to failure and being kicked out health secretary, announcing more figures about the spread of the Delta variant previously found in India. and the whole of our healthcare system seems to be under attack. I live next to the cyber centre, the centre in Cheltenham, next to the government's communication headquarters, that are in charge of protecting the NHS against hacking. You may recall in 2017 we had a massive hack taking down 69 local authorities, literally black screen type stuff. And at the moment we've just been told that there has been an assault of hacking attempts recently, very recently, and a lot of these are related to the fact that this data swap, or this data grab as it is being called in the press, as per the tweets that I've shared with you, people are very, very concerned, to put it mildly, because bringing together data has never been the forte of A, British corporates, and B, certainly not the National Health Service. So this is quite concerning, as is our health system generally. Been trying to bring together a lot of really old technology and bring it up to date. It looks messy.
Yeah. On this issue of this new campaign launched to try and force Palantir out of Britain's NHS, I just realized something in this article, which I just retweeted from the Tech News Twitter account. And you can click on it and read this yourself. And here's what I just noticed, that this campaign was launched just at the end of last week. It says the project was designed to help the government and health service use data to monitor and spread virus. Foxglove, this is what caught my eye. Does anyone remember this name, Foxglove? Foxglove, which describes itself as a tech justice nonprofit, is leading the campaign. You remember this, Cal? Anyone on stage remember this name? It was
Yeah. I remember this.
four
Yeah.
young ladies who consider themselves tech justice activists. And it is four young ladies who are doing what they call tech justice. And they feel they are fighting for causes. And they are the ones launching this campaign. And clearly they have friends who are journalists at CNBC, notably, because that's who's covering the story. And Foxglove says, we got dozens of organizations to realize and agree that this company has no place in the NHS in the long term. Corey Kreider, the lawyer who co-founded Foxglove, told CNBC on Wednesday. And it's a really interesting development. Foxglove is actually really interesting. The Palantir's relationship with NHS is not really interesting at all. They're just a service provider, and NHS should have been a little more careful in disclosing, how they're using the data they collect and how they're letting a private company like Palantir process it for them on their behalf. But nonetheless, and that did get into the headlines, and that has led Foxglove has some sort of axe to grind with Palantir, which I can't see precisely what their what their beef is with Palantir in this article. But this small group of four feisty young ladies is leading this campaign to against Palantir. And this will, by the way, is not their first campaign. And I can assure you it will not be their last. And it will be very interesting to see what their future campaigns are, because they get attention when they do start these campaigns. They clearly know how to get journalists to write about their campaigns. So let's earmark this one and set a Google.
If I could just
Yeah, go
add,
ahead. But I just want to encourage people
sorry,
to
I think
make a Google Alerts setting in your email for the word Foxglove, because when their name appears in the press again, it will be very interesting to see what their future campaigns look like. Yes, go ahead.
They have
so.
a website.
One of the issues with the NHS is their transparency. Right. The big awards to corporates, which we've had £1.8 billion paid to a Chinese company to provide all of the home testing kits, which were promised by our government, so that every individual in the UK would have a home testing kit. And a Chinese company was given the £1.8 billion award to do that. And all the other awards, a lot of them are Hong Kong and or China, are all publicly available on the gov.uk website. Everybody can see the awards that are made at the time and day that they are made. And this level of transparency is causing pandemonium, as you can see, when we've got a government saying our own economic future is a sad one and that our own companies are struggling for overseas business. It's becoming really tortuous.
Highlight,
Sorry,
there's
that's
a
a note.
great news just broken by the FDA. Do you remember I just tweeted a day ago or something about Alzheimer's disease and the Biogen therapeutic? It's been
Right.
approved. So that's not only important from the evidence for it being working is not that great, to be honest, in the literature. But the fact that it's been approved, it probably also reflects what's happened with COVID and how future regulatory things will move. So I think that's. I thought I'd share that with you. I've just tweeted it from
Okay,
your
I'll
account.
retweet that out. I just found the key paragraph in this article about Foxglove and their campaign about getting Palantir out of the NHS, and here it is. Here's the quote from one of the co-founders, Miss Kreider. She says, "The British public need to realize that we are now coming into a period where the future of the NHS health data and the health data settlement of this country is now kind of up for grabs and up for debate. Companies have seen it for a while. Palantir don't want to monetize the data. They want to monetize the infrastructure, but there are other companies who absolutely do want to monetize access to the data. And for that, they are very correct. And that's why we've been talking about Amazon and Google's big entry into health. And their interest is about health data because they are data companies. And if you joined us 7 hours ago, I did a whole rant about this, how Amazon's a data company, Google's a data company, Facebook, Spotify, all these companies are data companies. And now they are starting to move, well, notably Amazon and Google have announced they're getting into health, and their ability and mastery at managing data is going to give them a very unfair advantage with the traditional health providers. And so this is her point, is that the British public need to realize that we're now coming into a period where the future of health data in our country is up for grabs. And that is really, they have a good point there, which is we need to be very concerned about health data and who gets access to it. And if she's worried about Palantir, Palantir is not interested in becoming a health company, but Google and Amazon are. And so we might see an American version of Foxglove in the not so distant future.
Tyler, can I comment
Please
on
do,
this just
Frost.
a little bit? So the thing with Amazon Web Services and the likes, right? So Amazon Web Services controls around 70% of the data available on the NHS in curation format that can be put on the cloud, regardless of whether it's any cloud agency running it, whether it's through a private cloud or whatnot. When it goes in the end on a cloud, Amazon Web Services controls that service. The issue that Amazon Web Services or certain agencies of certain countries would have with the NHS is that they cannot legally extract it because the Cloud Act is not applicable to the United Kingdom, regardless of the Cloud Act specifically stating that if a technology company has its headquarters in the United States, if the data is kept on a data server outside of the country, even on foreign soil, if an agency in the United States demands it, it has to be made available to them. This is not applicable to the United Kingdom, as the United Kingdom is the United States' #1 ally. Hence, if it were to be demanded by certain states, and I'm just saying certain states, they would have to send in various other agencies. And that's all I'll say there. I'll let you read between the lines, and I'm sure there's everyone else who can read between the lines there as well. I'll stop. Thank you.
Tyler, I have a very, very short
Yep.
question. The thing is that I have something called the Apple Bubble on Facebook, and there are a couple of hundred Apple geeks in Sweden. I want to invite them to our channel. How do I get out a mass invite for a channel? How do I
To
do
this
it?
room, I'm just
Yes.
tweeting the link to this room from the Tech News Twitter account at TNATW on Twitter. And if they need an invite to Clubhouse, is that what they need?
Yeah, probably. I thought it was possible to join when you had the rooms and gave them the
Yeah,
number that they could join right off. But
I'm going to send also the link so they can join Clubhouse. Also, I will tweet that right now from the Tech News Around the World Twitter account at TNATW. And if they click this link, then they can automatically join Clubhouse. It's an invite because I have 999 invites. And so they can.
So they
It's
automatically
a
come into the Tech
Correct.
News Club.
club. Yeah, it's a club invite.
Right.
brilliant. Thank you,
Yeah.
sir.
Yes.
That is all I
Okay.
wanted. Do I get a bonus if I bring 100 people?
Yes, you get.
You have to pay for every invite, Johan.
Yeah, we will send you
one Bitcoin as you.
Yeah.
Yes, yes.
The low price of one
Maybe a
Bitcoin.
Dogecoin.
I've
The
been saving my whole life
marginal
to get a
cost is pretty
Dogecoin.
low right now.
So there's a ton of headlines to jump through here. One that I just retweeted from the Tech News Twitter account that Cal sent in. Flipkart, which is one of the biggest new tech companies in India, just received it. Well, they're in talks, it says, but usually when these headlines break, the deal's already done. Flipkart is said to be in talks to raise $3 billion from SoftBank in Japan, our friend Masayoshi Son, who is one of the biggest tech investors in the world. Obviously, when he's investing $3 billion into a startup, most funds only, a big tech fund raises $1 billion to spend over many years. Masayoshi Son doesn't play like that. He's investing $3 billion into one startup. Just to give you an idea of the scale at which SoftBank is playing, it's truly unbelievable. We covered the Palantir story, the G.
Again, it's India, right? It's getting into India with multiple
Oh,
investments,
huge.
right?
Yeah.
For
Masa's out.
for SoftBank and also for
Yeah. The fact that Masa is betting big on Flipkart means he's betting big on India, and the smartest bet in India for him is Flipkart, because he has actually a unique challenge of figuring out where can I deploy $3 billion rather expeditiously. That's that
Vision
Yeah,
fund.
no, his vision fund is $100 billion. How do you spend if you want to bet on India? And you want to bet $3 billion on India, which he does, you have to think strategically, how can I spend $3 billion on Indian tech? Well, if you try and do it in small startups, it would take you a year to spend $3 billion. So he's found Flipkart, where it's a vehicle which he feels is a safe way to invest $3 billion. He's really betting on India, I believe. And Flipkart is a safe way where if you were going to bet $3 billion all at once, rather than giving 3 billion startups all $1 each, that would really take forever. So it's just an efficient way to invest 3 billion into the Indian tech ecosystem. I think, as usual, he will come out on the right side of that trade. Another big article out of the Guardian, just breaking now, is that you remember in the past 48 hours, there was a huge tech announcement, a huge political announcement on a global level, that the G7, the world's 7 biggest economies, which include Japan, the UK, the US, etc., all got together, and as part of their meeting, they made a decision about the big tech companies. And their decision was they want to tax them. And they need to all tax them based on the activities they do in their country, which would kind of close up one of the loopholes where these companies are basing themselves in Liechtenstein and Luxembourg and these kind of tax havens and stuff. So there's a new headline that says this new global G7 deal may actually let Amazon off the hook on tax. Well, what do you know, Joe? Amazon figured out already how to get around. It's only been 48 hours. You guys made up this whole new
but it is the Amazon hating journalist, right, from Guardian that we've spotted
Aren't they
before.
all, though, Cal? Is there an Amazon loving journalist
No,
these
that's
days?
true. No, that's
Yeah,
true.
and that's part of the game. But so exclusive, the Guardian is calling this very exclusive news we're now sharing with you, that there was communications they have from the ministers suggesting that this deal only applies to profits exceeding 10% margin, which would rule out Amazon. Oh, what an interesting coincidence that is. So Amazon won't actually have to be paying any more tax after all. Oh, well, isn't that
Because it's
interesting?
a low margin business, right? Amazon's a low margin business. It's retail.
Precisely, Cal.
That's
Let's
right.
unpack this for the slow kids in the class, like our friend Dave. What this means is that effectively, because Amazon intentionally runs without a profit, in fact, they run at an intentional loss. And journalists for years have been writing articles that, in fact, Amazon's not profitable. Oh, by the way, Amazon's not profitable. For the past 20 years, oh, another article that Amazon's not profitable. Well, at this point, they're the biggest fucking company in the world. Stop writing that they're not profitable. They're obviously not trying to be profitable, you idiot. Take a business class. Take a fucking business class and understand you don't need to be profitable to become the richest man in the goddamn fucking world, you
Yeah.
idiot. Wake the fuck up and
Yeah.
stop.
This is your MBA class. We're taking
Jesus
you through the
Christ, these
course.
tech journalists
Thank you.
drive me insane. Take a class on what you're
And
writing
you're
about.
telling
It's so weird how they get these gripes and just fucking hold on to it for literally decades.
Yes.
And they just
And
come off in these
Jeff
weird,
Bezos
bitter,
is laughing as he throws millions of dollars out of his car window down the highway that he's not profitable. As he's buying spaceships to go to the fucking moon. Oh, forgive me for not being profitable. Did I drop $1 billion? Who cares? Who cares about $1 billion I just dropped? Oh, well, technically I'm not profitable. So poor. So tech journal.
Did I just build the biggest cloud infrastructure?
They have the biggest cloud they're running the goddamn internet. They're sending rockets to space. They're taking over all of retail with what they call e-commerce. And they're intentionally, do you get this, tech journalist? Do you get this? They're intentionally not profitable. So they don't have to pay tax. Do you get it? It's not that complicated. Take a business 101 class at your local community college. God damn. So, oh my God.
that did really get you up to
This
speed, dude.
dude pisses
It
Tyler off
just,
so
well,
much.
anyway, so now they're realizing.
My
Oh, this is
wife
good.
thinks I'm crazy.
Keep
I'm
going,
still
man.
laughing.
So, anyways,
Keep going,
so,
man.
anyways, it turns out that this new, plan that the G7 have to tax the big tech companies only applies to companies who have a 10% profit margin. Well, guess who that leaves out? Tech companies that intentionally run at a loss, which is Amazon. So this new tax scheme isn't going to affect Amazon.
And soon to be many
Yeah,
more.
but by the way,
Soon to be many
yeah,
more.
these big G7 countries, they know goddamn well Amazon isn't making a 10% profit in their countries, and they knew goddamn well when they were writing this tax thing, if they really wanted to tax Amazon, they would have to find a different tax scheme to make them pay tax, and they easily could do that. So it makes you wonder, did they really want Amazon to pay tax at all anyways? Because Amazon's lobbying is quite profound. And so maybe they have their own little and some kind of internal conflicts of interest. And my friend tech journalist, that's the story you actually want to be going after. Is why is the G7, my finance ministers, creating tax rules that let Amazon not pay tax? There's a story for you, tech journalist. Why don't you jump on that one and get back to us? Jesus Christ. Whew.
Mulder and Scully on the job.
Can someone call Mully and Scully? Oh my dear Lord.
And Rishi Sunak's connection to the tech industry. Maybe you just want to go there. Keep playing the music. I'm not
Okay.
being, normally don't go down that way.
Okay, so here's a Financial Times article that's just breaking, and I'll retweet this out for everybody as well, which it says, give me 2 seconds while I retweet it for the benefit of everybody following the 2,000 people, very intelligent and beautiful people who are following the Twitter account. And by the way, we're adding 100 glorious, genius, gorgeous people to the Twitter account each day. You could be one of them too. Just follow TNATW on Twitter. The Financial Times does a story that says, headline is Apple under pressure to close loopholes in new privacy rules, which indeed they are. And indeed, Apple just yesterday announced they're going to release a new Android app because their new AirTag, which in full transparency, I bought one today, with full disclosure, these new Apple AirTags come with them a whole bunch of new privacy issues because I could send what, it's rumored that our friend Dave is using these to track his dogs and maybe some friends around his hometown in Ireland. And if those people use if they have an Apple phone, then they get a notification that says, hey, did you know there's an AirTag following you around? And then they will know. But what if they don't have an Apple iPhone? So now Apple realized, shit, we need to make an Android app for Android users to know that, let them know if they're being tracked by an Apple AirTag. So Apple has now just said they're going to make that, and they're going to make it easier for people who do have iPhones to know if they're being tagged by an Apple AirTag device, which, by the way, I literally just bought one before this room opened, and it cost about $30 ish with shipping and whatnot. And it's a bit of a game changer, especially for your pets. And actually, the Stripe, which is one of the biggest, fastest growing tech companies in the world, is a fintech company, coincidentally out of Ireland. The two founders are Irish brothers.
Tyler, it might be worth noting with the AirTags that it's only going to work if it's within 30 feet of an iPhone.
Right.
So if you stick it on your dog and it goes running off in a field, you are shit.
Yeah, you're going to, well, no, not really.
They're wicked.
Not at all, because any iPhone user who gets anywhere within your dog, it will then tell you.
Yeah, of an iPhone, any iPhone.
Correct.
Absolutely. Yeah, not your iPhone, any
right.
iPhone.
So if you live in a city with people who have iPhones and your dog gets within 30 feet of a person with an iPhone, you'll know where your dog is.
Yeah.
It's a great point. It's a really interesting technology of how they kind of use everyone's devices to kind of triangulate where things are. And by the way, that's how your iPhone and your Find Me stuff works. When your batteries die on stuff, you can still be able to find your devices after the fact. They save a little bit of battery to be able to use that same chip that's in that AirTag. But the point is, there is a privacy issues, and Apple does have privacy issues, and you can read this Financial Times article about Apple under pressure to close the loopholes in their new privacy rules.
Under pressure.
That would be a great. I should have.
But this product will be good for those elderly who have a chance of getting dementia.
Yeah, that is a great use case, by the way.
Yeah.
Track your grandparents, yeah.
And now, by the way, Bitcoin has been in the news the past 24 hours in a very big way, because there was a huge Bitcoin conference down in Miami called Bitcoin 2021, which our friend Ame is currently at, and doesn't look like she's on stage, but she's been piping in the past few days to give us an update on the ground there, which has been great. And there's been several updates on the ground there. Perhaps the biggest one was that El Salvador is now going to use Bitcoin as one of their currencies, an alternative to the US dollar. And there's been all kinds of speculation about that. We could jump into that for an hour as we did previously. I will summarize by saying, hey, if someone's going to test all of this using Bitcoin as a currency, let it be El Salvador. Unless you've got another, tiny little country that you would like to, just let them test it. Then we get to see what could possibly go wrong. If something could possibly go wrong with Bitcoin, it will go wrong in El Salvador. That's the perfect place to do the worst case pressure testing on Bitcoin. I think everyone agrees on that. Pro and anti-Bitcoiners, I think, are both could finally be in alignment on this one. Let El Salvador test it. Let's find out what could possibly go wrong. And if something can go wrong, it will go wrong in El Salvador. That's the perfect place for the stress test of Bitcoin. And let's see what comes out of it.
Tyler, Donna had a really great angle.
Indeed, she does, as always.
She's
always got great points on all of these issues. Donna, you want to jump in on that?
Yeah, I pointed out in the room yesterday that our vice president is heading down to Central and Latin America. She's bringing with her 310 million of financial aid. Of course, El Salvador is a recipient of aid. It's dollar denominated, etc. So, as we all mentioned, and Justin mentioned in his room with the congressman, the U.S. is very intent on preserving the dollar as the dominant currency. We saw our former president just tweet this morning that Bitcoin is a scam and the dollar is the global currency. So we see this playing out every day. And of course, El Salvador, small country, brings this into more prominence. But there are some very specific things that
how did Donald Trump tweet that out?
I don't know, or something.
I've got the article right. You're trying to steal my headline, Donna. I've got the head.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
Anyway, I would follow some of the top lawyer and banking people in this space as they discuss on Twitter and other places the knock-on effect of a country which is dollar denominated, indicating that another currency, Bitcoin in this instance, will be legal tender, and what it does or doesn't have down the line in implications for the U.S. and banks here in terms of being able to accept other things in their reserves as legal tender. So I say stay tuned.
Mm-hmm. So here's the headline. And thank you, Donna. And Donna is one of our favorite people who joins us to share her incredible domain expertise on these issues. And do give her a follow if you are interested in anything to do with crypto and currencies of all kinds, and fintech in general. So Bitcoin seems like a scam. A former U.S. President Donald Trump said Bitcoin is a scam and lamented what he claimed was another currency competing with the U.S. dollar. Former President Trump told Stuart Varney of Fox Business today that Bitcoin is a scam. Bitcoin just seems like a scam, he said, adding, I don't like it because it's another currency competing against the dollar. I want the dollar to be the currency of the world. That's what I've always said. And nobody says that better than Donald Trump, by the way. So during his time in the White House, Trump was similarly critical of Bitcoin, describing it and other cryptocurrencies as assets that are not money and whose value is highly volatile and based on thin air. And I think the Bitcoin thing was written by somebody else. I think the Bitcoin thing was written by governmental bureaucrats that don't want to see Bitcoin rise, whatever that means. I could tell very quickly. Scaramucci made a comment saying, I could tell very quickly when Trump himself was writing a tweet, they were loaded with malapropisms and misspellings and lack of commas. Just this stream of consciousness ranting, which, yes, that's how he tweeted. But I'm sharing this article from the Tech News Twitter account at TNATW. And for those who are new to Tech News around the world, let me just say, the room itself that you are in is one thing. And as we talk about every topic, we share it on Twitter so that you can click and do the deep dive. And even better, you can tweet an article and we can see your article that you're sharing if you simply include our Twitter handle as part of your tweet, which is, again, TNATW. And then it makes it very easy for me and others to just simply tweet out your headline that you are sharing, as I'm doing right now with Faraz's tweet. So this one's now going out to the Tech News Twitter, the 2,000 followers, about Jeff Bezos says he's going to space on a Blue Origin flight. And Blue Origin is his his version of SpaceX, essentially. He says, I've dreamed of traveling to space since I was 5 years old, and bidding stands at $2.8 million for a seat on the July 20 mission. Jeff Bezos will go to space next month when his company Blue Origin launches its first passenger-carrying mission. The 57-year-old who plans to travel alongside his brother Mark made the announcement in his Instagram post on Monday. The scheduled launch next month will be about 2 weeks after the billionaire plans to step down as chief executive officer of Amazon. Ever since I was 5 years old, I've dreamed of traveling to space, Bezos said in the post. On July 20th, I will take that journey with my brother, the greatest adventure with my best friend, he says. And it shows he sent out a video of him hugging his brother. And it's, as it says also, people can bid to join that flight along with him and his brother. And the current bidding stands at $2.8 million. Although,
has he lived his will yet?
I'm sorry?
Has he written his will yet, just in case anything happens?
All right. Well, by the way, he's dating, so he's no longer available, Cheryl. So
I didn't ask that question.
Yeah, you're not going to be able to get in his will. I know you're interested in his will. It looks very unhopeful
Tyler, quick
at this point,
question.
Cheryl. Yes, go ahead.
Quick question. You guys are aware that Blue Origin got into a tussle with SpaceX on the NASA contracts,
Please,
right?
I'm very well aware, but please inform the audience.
So they got into essentially. I mean, I don't know too much about the space agencies, etc., but I'll try my best. So Blue Origin, when SpaceX got all of the NASA contracts, as they always do, and hence, in my humble opinion, and a good friend who always appears on the show, Charles, who I was introduced to by Tyler and Cal, also says, which is the reason that Elon Musk gets away with so many things that he does, is because he controls the NASA contracts and because he gets into space and does many things for certain people, he essentially does whatever he wants. But anyway, that's a different subject. SpaceX usually gets all of this. I mean, they always get all the space contracts and from NASA. This time, Blue Origin actually took SpaceX to the Supreme Court on that for it for essentially a very, very, very long time. Blue Origin then lost. Basically what the lawsuit was about was proverbially a copy paste of what you would call a monopoly lawsuit in the tech world, where Elon Musk is taking the space agencies for a ride based on a monopoly, when Blue Origin just the same has the same capabilities or even better than SpaceX to be able to do the same business. So to me, as an outsider, as a layman, it looks like at some point Blue Origin will receive these contracts. It's just a matter of time. And when it does, I personally believe that a lot of power from SpaceX will be lost to the point of it even opening up to other players. And I think Bezos is coming for Elon very, very quickly and very swiftly. And it just goes to show the amount of power that Amazon and Bezos and all of his other companies combined have, to the point of, for the first time, someone has stepped up to challenge SpaceX. To date, I don't know of anyone that has.
Right.
Unless anyone does.
Yeah. Well, in the U.S., right, because it's a U.S. battle for NASA's huge funds. And Elon is taking a lot of the NASA funding because he's proven he can get satellites up into space far cheaper than NASA could previously, in large part because he's reusing the rockets. And that was his main innovation, which Blue Origin has yet to really manage at scale, because SpaceX seems to be making good progress with that. And Bezos is challenging Elon because Bezos understands how good of a little racket Elon's got going for himself over there. And competing with governments, once you're effectively, governments are not economically efficient, especially in space. And Elon is far more economically efficient as a private company. And Bezos says, hey, I can play that game too. And so he is. And what I think Bezos knows far more than all of us combined. But I think having a little bit of insight, having Elon being a board member at the company I was at, Elon has very good ties and relationships within NASA because he's been servicing them for quite a few years now. And so when NASA is figuring out who to give a contract to between Elon and Jeff, relationships can come into play. And it would be that's now, there you go, tech journalists. There's an interesting story you could jump into, which is NASA having a little bit of nepotism with their friend Elon there? That would be an interesting story for sure. And I'm not trying to get Elon in any trouble there. I think what SpaceX is doing is fantastic.
You're just trying to give work to journalists.
I'm just telling journalists what could be a really interesting story. Yeah, I mean, if you want to do some digging on Jeff Bezos, there's one for you.
Bezos exerts a lot of pressure on the government as well.
Yeah, and by the way, this is not the only space, no pun intended, where Bezos and Elon are squaring off, because the future of delivery of products and goods and services is an even potentially even much bigger battlefield, where in the not so distant future there will be autonomous vehicles driving deliveries. When you order something on Amazon or anywhere else for that matter, it's going to be delivered to you in a matter of a few hours by an autonomous vehicle. And the question is,
hey, let's say, Tyler, to jump in on your earlier comment before you go down that whole one, is that this nepotism, corporate nepotism stuff, this is, of course, there's corporate. I mean, I would say that's absolutely not a relevant news article, because that's what happens all the time. That's what lobbyists are for, right? It's not the best company or the best budget or anything else. So, of course, it's this kind of internal lobbying, and they're both doing it. Maybe Elon won the last one, but they're going to come at it. And the other one, following Cheryl's comment, I'm sure this isn't the only reason that Jeff Bezos is stepping down, but I will bet as a CEO, he wouldn't have been allowed to go on that flight because of the risk profile. So, yeah, that's something that would have to be disclosed and then probably not allowed. So anyways, just aside, but yeah, I mean, this is all standard games here. And then as you're highlighting, these are just all standard, how these guys are getting in showing efficiency over current government operations and big government contractors. That's not that hard to do. It's great that the government's actually opening up to this and allowing this to fund it. Again, they're both looking at where they're getting all this money. It's to them, we're getting funding to do what we want to do. So, open up and expand our empires.
Well, by the way, I mean, Elon is kind of establishing himself as almost a soft monopoly with regard to the NASA contracts. And so Bezos is just saying, hey, well, if there's going to be kind of a marketplace for this, he'll throw his hat in, because hardly anyone's willing to jump up and compete with Elon for these incredibly lucrative NASA contracts. So that's kind of one of the points there. And anyway, and by the way, Virgin Galactic, Richard Branson is also throwing his hat into this game as well, as people who have the resources and means and understand that game. And those guys certainly do understand that game, and that's why they're willing to jump into it. The other really interesting game is the future of delivery, which we were just touching on. And just to unpack that, it's the other space where Amazon and Elon are head to head in. And Google's the other player in that game of being the autonomous vehicles that are going to deliver your products and goods and yourself, your body, and your kids and your parents around town. Because in the not so distant future, it'll be autonomous vehicles that'll you buy stuff online. It'll be delivered by an autonomous vehicle in a few hours. And what you need to do that is a large network of vehicles, which Uber tried to get into this game. They were one of the early players into this game, and Uber had grand ambitions of being this huge autonomous vehicle network. They just lack one critical piece, which is they don't own the cars. And Tesla does own the cars, and Tesla does have the autonomous technology. Uber just sold their autonomous technology. Does anyone remember who? We shared that headline about 6 weeks ago. And they sold it for a considerable amount of money, $500 million. Doesn't someone remember who?
Did they sell it to Waymo? Didn't they partner with Waymo?
Waymo is Google's autonomous team, but the CEO and the CFOs just stepped down, interestingly, which puts Tesla in the lead in this battle for the future of who's going to have this autonomous vehicle network.
Was it Ford?
No. But somebody can Google it. We'll get to it. But the point is that Tesla and Amazon both understand whoever has this autonomous vehicle network, and you can imagine if you own a Tesla in the very near term, in the next few years, your Tesla will drive all day and night while you sleep or work and do deliveries on your behalf, and you might get some part of that money. And then
they sold it to Aurora. I don't know what that is.
And then shortly after that, as soon as those cars prove themselves to be super valuable and have good ROI, Tesla will stop selling those cars to people, keep them for themselves. And Amazon itself is doing deliveries and starting to do autonomous deliveries. And it'll be a race to see who can do the autonomous deliveries. Because if you can monopolize the autonomous delivery market, then it's not that big of a stretch for Tesla to partner with e-commerce sites and be a real existential threat to Amazon. And Jeff and Elon are friends, but very much fall into the frenemies category of, being huge infrastructure players in the future of, the future of infrastructure is who's going to do delivery of all the products and services and people within a city.
Right, because Tyler, with your point, exactly, the data that these guys have, so that Amazon has about people and pushing shopping and e-commerce, delivery is the other big pillar there, as you're saying, that last mile delivery or those short trips. And so as you're pointing out, that's a huge factor that they can get in and do that. And did someone just say that they sold to Agora,
No.
the platform in China?
Justin, no. We have to see who did.
No,
Uber
that's something
sells autonomous team to
Aurora.
Aurora is the name, yeah.
It's a startup, which
So
I
Aurora,
tweeted it out at you.
Yep.
Aurora was started by Chris Urmson, who founded Waymo or started Waymo. So Aurora is actually a leader in the field of autonomous driving technology. Just so for folks who don't
Sid,
know.
do you happen to know? Nobody seems to have reported. I would love to figure out the riddle. And again, tech journalists, here's a story for you. Why did Waymo's CEO and CFO, or CTO rather, recently, both in the same week, resign. Because that's a huge story that somebody's not yet covering, because that is Google's key people in their bid to be the delivery. And they've been investing in this very heavily for a very long time, because they understand how important that is to have that autonomous vehicle network, or army, if you want to call it that. It's a very, Sid, you I no doubt know people in the
I
Valley who
don't
know the answer to
know.
that question.
I haven't really followed this news. I'm hearing this for the first time, but I quickly
Yep.
Googled it, and Patrick Pichette, who's the
Yep.
CFO, or no, that he's the Google
Uh-huh.
CFO. I thought the Google CFO retired. I haven't seen any Waymo CFO resignation news. Maybe you can tweet it
I will
out, but
tweet it
I'm
out.
not.
Maybe it's related to why David Chang hasn't been on
No, I spoke
Clubhouse
to
in a
your
week.
friend David today, by the way, and I'll tell you why. He's
I did
Yeah.
too.
Did he tell you why he's been kind of low key lately?
Yeah. I don't know if we should. I don't know if we should say that though.
It's an understandable reason that I think he will.
I was just thinking about what happened to him.
He has a very good
He'll be
reason.
back.
He has a very good political reason for why he's laying low, which I think he'll reveal when he comes back in a couple of days.
That's a
Yeah.
cliffhanger,
So
folks. Well, that's what we call a
Let's leave
cliffhanger in the
it for him
business.
to.
Is he
Yeah.
still in Beijing now,
yes,
by
he
the
is.
way?
So
Oh, I
Google
see. Okay.
Autonomous Division Waymo CEO resigned and moving to Austin, Texas.
Oh, Craft Chick. Yes, yes. Okay, so I think he just retired.
Yeah, I haven't
He's made
heard
too much money
anything.
and he's just
And
retired.
then
He's gonna go do a
Waymo,
startup in Austin,
right? And
maybe.
then Waymo said just days later that the chief technology officer, Dmitry Dolgov, and chief operating officer will serve as co-CEOs. But then one of them, as I recall, there was a headline just days later that one of them resigned. So that what I'm curious is why would two C-suite people on one of Google's most important projects both resign at the same time? And that deserves some tech journalist to go dive into that one.
Yeah, I follow this space pretty closely. I haven't heard that there's anything suspicious about it. Krafchick, built it pretty much from scratch.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, he was going to move on at some point. I mean, Austin is where Neuro is. I doubt he's going to end up there, um, but I think it's possible because Waymo has recently said Waymo is basically considered the gold standard. Cruise is people know maybe Cruise Automation, who's associated with GM, and is a Silicon Valley kind of darling. And then there's a couple other, obviously, international players, but Waymo is the first one that had a robo taxi that did not have like a trailing vehicle or someone in, even a safety driver in the front seat. So they're the gold standard. But I know they recently came out in the past couple months and seemed to basically say self-driving is further along than everybody thinks. And so when they say that, that kind of makes everybody else be like, okay, this could be another, it's been 2 years, according to Elon Musk, it's been 2 years away since 2015. And so when Waymo says it's 10 years away, who knows, maybe they are just looking for a different vision now to either, because people have always said they could just license their product. It's ultimately it's software. The car is the car. So who knows, maybe they are looking to go in a different direction in terms of their business model.
Time with it.
Just one thing I wanted to add to the
Uh-huh.
discussion really quickly about delivery. I'm not sure if it was brought up already, but I was listening in kind of passively about Domino using Neuro, and they launched in Houston in April for pizza delivery. So I think Neuro is going to be a big player in this
Yeah,
space
we
as well.
covered that headline when it broke.
I mean, let's be
Yep.
clear that Domino's delivery bot was half a kilometer delivery
Correct.
in a very, very suburban area. So that's like 10% of the
Right.
problem that Neuro has
Very.
solved. I'm not throwing
No.
crap at Neuro, but these are very, very edge cases that make the
Yes.
news.
Well
Just
said.
yeah.
And what Sid is very appreciatively doing is helping the non-geek audience understand when innovators innovate, they need to do it in baby steps. And this Domino's is a perfect, nice little example of how to beta test something in a baby step fashion. We call it beta testing. You can think of it as taking baby steps, and they're beta testing this technology, and they found a use case where they could beta test it by doing little pizza deliveries around, because pizza deliveries are all often done very close geographically in a very preset area, because pizza delivery shops have an actual boundary of where they deliver. which is already understood. They could map out every bit of that little predefined area, that little geography of that delivery area. They can map it out perfectly for that vehicle. And so it's instead of doing the entire city or every city, which becomes mathematically exponentially more difficult. Because if you only have to do 5 city blocks by 5 city blocks, yeah, we could train the car to drive those 5 city blocks by 5 city blocks. That's actually totally within the realm of possibility today for autonomous vehicles. So
There's a pun for that. It's one of the small dominoes to fall.
I was going to say, yeah, there's, I mean, there's like the geofence, so that's why Waymo also operates just in Chandler, Arizona. First of all, there's no pedestrians there, so it's a very easy environment. But also, you can basically really micro manage the map. I think what people need to realize, though, is that, well, first of all, a lot of these companies we've talked about, I think you've mentioned Nuro before, Tyler. Nuro still, they deliver groceries and stuff. They have a human vehicle trailing, at least they did a couple months ago. We have here in Ann Arbor a little mini bike. It goes in the bike lane. It's like a 3-wheeler that delivers. They also have someone on a bike right behind it. So it's not so much that the technology is there, but also the business model, because you have to realize you have to beat a human driver. You have to beat like minimum wage. You have to beat $15 an hour. So it's not just building the tech; it's building it at scale. Because we do have a substitute, which is, you know, what we see every day, which is your groceries getting delivered by a person, and it's nearly flawless. And with labor cheap, it's
by the way,
you got to beat that.
By the way, the 3-wheeled vehicles is also a very clever regulatory hack for innovators who want to avoid, because there's a lot of regulations once you add that 4th wheel. If you can do it as a 3-wheel vehicle, there's much less regulatory red tape that you magically get to. It's kind of what we call the wheelchair at Disneyland effect, where you get to go right to the front of the line if you're a 3-wheeled vehicle rather than a 4-wheeled vehicle. And so you're going to start seeing a lot of these autonomous things testing out 3-wheeled vehicle, as I think it was Jesse who said. Dr.
How do you know all that, Tyler? What's your background in?
I know too much. I have too many interesting dinner dates with people doing interesting things.
I've realized, Tyler, you're like the Forrest Gump of physics for
potholes. With those 3 wheels.
Yeah. Dr. Danish just shared a hot link. You want to jump into that one on MedTech?
Yeah, it's a huge one
Go for
today,
it.
and I think it's hard to explain. But the big news is that One Medical merges with Iora Health today. Just to give you guys some context, One Medical is the largest concierge care platform in the world. Iora Health is one of the largest value-based care providers in the world. Both are tech-enabled, and this completely shakes up. And from at least a few people that I've talked to today, they're said that this could be either the changing of the guards in the healthcare delivery space, this combined company, or this could be a giant catastrophe. Because as you guys may know, One Medical gets paid for every visit, so they're fee for service. Iora Health gets paid per month, so they're value-based care. And them coming together kind of could be the clash of the titans in that way. So we're really excited to watch, but literally, some people are calling this the end of legacy health systems. They've now, One Medical goes from 6 states to 28 states in one day. Huge news.
I just shared it from the Tech News Twitter account at TNATW, so people can read the entire article and do the deep dive for those who love the medtech. And we appreciate Dr. Danish because he consistently brings the most important headlines around medtech, and then helps us do the deep dives. And even now doing the deep dive rooms on the weekends with the other medtech brainiacs who join us regularly. And then you get 2 hours, 3 hours of deep dive on medtech. Yeah, it's great. Go ahead, Professor Asif.
It's Asif here. Yeah, I was going to say, I think the biggest news today is about in 20 years, FDA first approved a drug for Alzheimer's, early stage Alzheimer's. And that's although the scientific data is iffy, but they obviously felt that maybe we're moving into a new climate where a patient, if it reaches patient safety and there is some efficacy, they're going to approve. But this, just think of most pharma run on 1 or 2 drugs. And so this is a Biogen is a startup kind of thing. They're going to become like Moderna, which is now quarter of the market cap of AstraZeneca.
Yeah.
So
If that comes through,
so
yeah,
that
that's one of those med tech.
it's been
Yeah,
approved.
I got you.
No, it's been approved by
I
the.
got you. And that is earth shaking news. And for the non med tech folks, when these pharmaceutical companies get approvals like this, that's billions and billions and billions of dollars that starts raining from the sky. That is, it's earth changing stuff. And that's why he says for that industry, for the med industry. It's not even med tech, just for medicine in general, the whole healthcare space. That is, a huge kind of home run type event. Um,
And it means
And
that the regulators are going to be more lenient towards unmet medical need areas where there is a life-threatening conditions like preeclampsia. So that's why I'm saying it's quite important.
Thank you for that.
and Tyler, the key for this drug is that it attacks the amyloid plaque in the brain. So it's not just trying to create better quality of life for those suffering. It's going after the cause, perhaps, of actual Alzheimer's. So it is a potential exciting drug.
I will say that let me just let's go between the lines for a second. The other big issue that Dr. Asif is alluding to, and Dr. Asif, maybe you can do a better job than I can, but federal regulators have been looking at this, and while it has been approved, there has been immense pressure from the Alzheimer's and the caregiver community, having been part of that caregiver community for some years. But the road to regulatory approval has not been easy. In fact, the drug initially showed promise in 2016, but in March of 2019, they actually pulled the drug after an independent group revealed that it was unlikely to work.